here for Leaders Lead the podcast. Let's go. Hey, how did you beat me? Look, let me tell you about this podcast. We got like 5 seconds. Leaders Lead the podcast is about leadership. Not just the leader without, but the leader within. All of these leaders that I'm talking to across the country, well, across the world now, they have one thing in common, and that's that they have overcome some insurmountable obstacles to get to where they're at today. This is On the Record, and we are powered by Leaders Lead Network and SpeakUniversity.org. This platform exists for one reason: you, the voter. Every election, we're asked to choose the people who will make decisions that affect our families, our communities, our schools, our businesses, and our future. Yet too often, we make those decisions based on campaign ads, mailers, sound bites, or headlines, or mudslinging. I wanted to create something different. On the Record is a place where candidates step away from the campaign slogans and have real long-form conversations about who they are, what they believe, and how they intend to lead if they're elected. My commitment is simple. Every candidate is treated with respect. Every candidate is given the opportunity to answer meaningful questions, and every voter deserves the information they need to make an informed decision. Whether you're voting for a city council member, a school board member, commissioner, sheriff, state representative, state senator, member of Congress, president, or any other elected office, my hope is that these conversations will help you better understand the people that are asking for your vote. As you watch, I encourage you to take notes, think about what matters the most to you, compare the candidates' answers, and remember that many of our guests have agreed to continue engaging with your questions after the interview. Before we meet today's guest, I'd like you to know that every candidate on the ballot for this office has been offered the same opportunity to participate on the record. Our mission isn't to tell you who to vote for. Our mission is to give you the information you need to make an informed decision by yourself. Now let's get on the record. Joining me today is Jim Pierson, who is running for LD35 representative. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Tony. It's quite pleasure.
Yeah, it has been. I've been having a really good time getting to know you, especially for our pre-candidate interviews. And I think you got a lot of good stuff to say.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself beyond the campaign. Who are you?
Well, beyond the campaign, I think you mentioned first that I'm running for LD35, which is the district that is running from Thurston County all the way to Bremerton. So I live in Thurston County, right, just south of Olympia. I've been here in Washington State for the last 30 years. I served in the Army in Special Forces for about 7 years, and that was mainly in the Arctic Circle. So a lot of cold weather, skiing and swimming in the ice. Cold War, literally.
Hoorah.
But then I left that and I got into the software industry. And for the last 30 years here in Washington, I worked at Microsoft, Apple, also GoDaddy, mainly as a project manager. So I worked across many hundreds of projects and thousands of engineers. I had a lot of fun doing that. Also while raising a family, 2 kids and my wife here in Washington.
What life experiences would you say have shaped you to become the person that you are today?
Life experiences?
Yeah.
Well, the Army has a lot to do with it. I do, even so many years later, reflect back on it quite a bit. Just the perseverance, certain times just being struggling to get through a particular situation and realizing that a lot of it is in my own mind. Like I'm fighting with myself or it's what I think I can do or can't do that limits me in how far I can actually go. And I learned that in the Army.
Wow. What party affiliation are you in?
Democrats for the most part. Yeah.
I mean, duh.
Well, I tend to think of myself as a fiscal responsible person. I like to live within my budget, but definitely social liberal in every way. And so,
What does that mean? Social liberal.
well, I mean, when it comes to immigrants, I'm definitely against the what's going on with ICE. When it comes to uh, people living their life and looking the way they want to look and being who they want to be, I'm definitely a liberal in those senses. You know.
So is it a little bit different probably when it comes to the money?
Well, when it comes to money, no, not no. I think there's quite a few Democrats who would agree with me that we have a budget and we need to. I was telling somebody about this. Whether we're having a meeting and it's a time budget or it's dollars and we're spending the dollars, we need to think ahead and plan our time out, plan our money out, and use it wisely. And so budget management is super important.
When people who know you the best, the people that are closest to you, if they were to describe you, what would they say?
I'm not I'm not a dramatic person. I tend to follow the data. I'm root cause oriented. I really like to follow how did we get to this point here? What caused this? What caused that? And keep going down the line and can I figure out what actually caused this problem? So I'm not necessarily reactionary like I think some people are, right? I'm more data oriented and the jury's out sometimes and I don't jump to conclusions. At least I try not to.
We're different. I'm very dramatic, Jim. Very dramatic. Sometimes I gotta just breathe, just breathe. I like that. What do you think that temperament would benefit the office that you're running for?
Yeah, I think a person has to be curious. They have to listen and try to take all sides in and really understand where are people coming from rather than just jumping to some conclusion and running with that. I want, when somebody comes to the door, as I mentioned, I do a lot of door knocking and I hit both sides. I see conservative people and very liberal people. And when a conservative person jumps out and says, "Oh, you Democrats been doing this and this," I don't run away. I lean into it and go, "Well, why do you think that? And tell me more about that." And then I often have my own answers and I try to educate people as much as I can. But I don't get into a fight with them immediately. And I go to breakfast with my conservative friends quite often too. And, as long as I stay away from saying certain things that really triggers them, and I try not to be triggered myself. So
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that, like, even in doorbelling, you will meet somebody that that probably wouldn't vote for you. You hear what they have to say, and you'll take the beating, but you'll still have the conversation with them. Why is that important?
well, I think there's a number of reasons. One is the district itself tends to lean to the right. So if I only talk to the friendly Democrats, that wouldn't necessarily win me the race. I need people in the middle to lean in towards my direction, right? Also, I think from my own family background, I grew up in a conservative family. My father was very conservative. I have brothers who are very conservative. And I learned to be able to communicate with them. I don't have to agree with them. And quite often we can have these verbal spars, I call them, right? Where we're sparring. I throw an idea out, they squash it, or they throw an idea out, and I give them real facts, and we go back and forth. And I've actually had a number of people at the door want to do that. They want to spend time. They haven't heard the other guy. The other guy hasn't come to their door, so they have me. And a lot of times they start with a very in your face kind of attitude, and 10, 15 minutes later, because I'll spend the time, they often turn it around. And I've gotten some really friendly responses from people. Well, I'll consider you. I'll look at your website.
Wow.
And, yeah, so I think if I wasn't willing to have the conversation, I was, and people like you to listen, right? And that's what we're supposed to do, representatives, right? If we just have our own opinion on everything, that's not representing.
Wow. How many doors have you knocked?
I just handed out my 2000s flyer, which I have somewhere here. Here we go. That's me on the front, and then me and my running mates on the back there. So I've handed out 2,000 of those so far, and not quite all of them have been doors. Some of them are in, we do these things we call coffee clutches, where we get 15, 20 people together. And we've been doing that precinct by precinct, especially the precincts that are very distributed, far apart. We do those. When the precincts are houses that are close together, I door knock those.
Oh, wow. Tell me about the running mates. I think I saw Carolina, and I think I saw, was it Marie?
And you see it in my flyer here. Carolina, and Maria Littleson. So Carolina Mejia,
okay,
and Maria Littleson.
Okay.
Carolina is currently Thurston County Commissioner, so she's very experienced. And then Maria Littleson from the Squaxin Nation, she is a caregiver, nurse. She does so much to take care of people there, right? She's currently running. Maria is running against Travis Couture. I'm running against position 2. I'm running against Dan Griffey, position 1. And then Carolina is running against Drew McEwen, the senator.
Okay. Why is it important to have running mates? Tell us more about that.
Well, I think we're stronger together, not to use the cliche, but we have different backgrounds, right? My background, software industry, project management, large corporations, and how projects are run. It's very similar to the government in the sense that there's a bill and there's specifications. Those things are very similar. But I don't have a lot of experience in certainly in the areas that Maria has, right? With being caregiver, working as a nurse. Those are things that me listening to her and where she's coming from gives me a lot of empathy and more of a perspective than I come into it with. So, and I think maybe I do the same thing for her as well. So I think we work better together.
So what I hear you saying, it's almost like an advisory committee. The things that you don't know, they can kind of fill in for you, and vice versa.
Yeah. There's also different communities. I probably can't door knock 60,000 homes, right? But if I do a fair chunk of them, and Carolina does a fair chunk, and they're different, and we talk about each other at each door, then we can cover more ground.
I love it. All right, Jim, this is my own curiosity. Anything surprised you about campaigning? Because is this your first race, or?
It's my first race. I'll tell you the most surprising thing to me, I was a little intimidated with the door knocking, kind of cold call, knocking on somebody's door. But I realized somewhere in, I felt like, I have a couple little dogs, but I felt like I would knock or I hit the doorbell and I would hear footsteps towards the door. And I realized I was sitting there like a dog shaking my tail going, yay, somebody's coming to the door. And that just surprised me because I thought, gosh, I would never like door knocking, but I actually enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. You never know what somebody's going to ask, and most everybody has been super friendly.
Wow. So it sounds like it's like a personal growth thing for you too, because if you're intimidated at first, and now it sounds like, I know every time that we've chatted, when we chatted before, it's like something that you really like, and I think that that's really cool. Meeting the people where they're at. I don't expect. I don't. I'm not saying like when you get into office, are you going to still beat doorbell, but meeting the people, which could be a thing, but meeting the people where they're at and willing to have a conversation with them, is that going to change?
Am I still going to do that? I think absolutely. Um, and I think door knocking. So one of the things I've been doing is I ask people one question. I say, "What is your top priority at the state level?" And that always kind of resets them, because a lot of people are thinking national, like Trump and things like that. But I'm coming here as a potential state representative, and I'm saying, "Hey, in the state, what is your top priority?" And so I'm hearing people tell me their issues, right? And I wouldn't hear that if I was just sitting in an office someplace, right? And it's really been good. I've been hearing about healthcare, price of healthcare, the access to healthcare, um, the price of homes. A lot of people, they rent because they can't afford a $500,000-$600,000 home. They're looking for something more in the $300,000 range. They could afford that, but there's nothing on the market to buy. Property taxes. Certainly when you talk to conservative people, the taxes are always top of their mind. Education, funding for education, and when I talk to younger people, they also talk about just the content. What are they being taught, and what are they not being taught? Road safety is another big issue, and the most surprising thing that I hear in all of the door knocking as far as issues is every once in a while I hear somebody say, "I can't think of any. I like it here." And what I've noticed is most of those people who answer that, they have not lived here a super long time. They're from out of state somewhere, Texas, South Carolina, where else? Colorado, quite a few different places. And I ask them, "Oh, well, you like it so much here?" They go, "Yeah." "Well, what about taxes?" "Oh, no, they have taxes everywhere," right? "Oh, what about this?" Or what about, "No, it's worse over there for." And what I'm realizing is they have more of an appreciation of what Washington State is, how beautiful and green it is, how nice the people are here, and everything else. Whereas I think sometimes people lose track of that point of view. If you've lived here all your life, you don't know that it's actually better here than anywhere else.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Can you tell me about someone that you've met on the campaign trail whose story like really stayed with you?
Story stayed with me. Well, a couple of those people that were from out of town, out of state, talked about just what it was like there, and then why they came here. I guess I'd have to think about it. Who had a real story that um, the ones that stay with me the most are actually the conservatives, the ones that have,
Mm.
because the other ones who say, "Oh, you had me a Democrat." I'm like, "Yeah, that's nice. I love you too, but you know that's great." But it's the people who are conservative and give me, a litany list of problems, and then we talk through those problems, and then they go, "Well, actually, you know what? Maybe it's not so bad," or maybe they realize that their arguments aren't all that strong.
Mm.
And a lot of them are just repeating things that are kind of pitched to them as those guys are the bad guys, and here I am at your door, and I'm really not that bad a guy. At least they're coming to that conclusion. So I think several of those conservative conversations were probably the ones that stick with me the most.
Wow. What issue do you think in the community is not getting enough attention that it deserves?
Well, my big go-to issue right now is the price of homes, buying a house. People need to be able to save money, and they need to be able to put money into a place where that money grows. And the best place to do that is in a home, right? But if you can't afford a $500,000, $600,000 home, then the entry fee is too high. So you end up renting. And part of the reason is we don't really have a middle tier, something in between renting and owning a home. What we should be having are more things like townhomes and condos, which are in the $300,000 range. And unfortunately, one of the big things is we live in the Northwest and it rains a lot here, right? And so what's happened over the years is that the contractors have been held liable for any sort of water damages that happen to, these shared, a condo or a townhome. They have shared roofs within them, and the laws were in such a way that the HOAs would turn around and sue the builders for any sort of damages, and 80% of the damages were usually water damage due to the rain. And it may be that the construction wasn't done right, but what happens is there's damage and then no one catches it for several years, and the damage goes up to hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for a large building. And so lately the laws have been changing. This last year, the laws were changed on how liability is handled, but I don't think they're addressing the actual root cause. I think a lot of times our politics are kind of whack-a-mole. We go and we fix one problem, but the other related problems keep popping up. If the top liability issue for builders and the reason they're not building condos and townhomes is because they're being sued, but if the top issue is water damages, there's a technical solution. Just like we put smoke alarms in our house, people now are putting moisture detectors in their roof, in the walls. I talked to a contractor just yesterday and he goes, "Oh yeah, I have those in my house already." Okay, so why not have the state incentivize that type of a solution? You build a new home, a new townhouse, you put in moisture detection systems. That means the liability, the risk is going to be lower. So maybe the insurance should be less, right? And I just think if we did things like that, if we incentivize the builders to do that type of work, preventative maintenance instead of reactionary maintenance, right, or reactionary fix, we could probably get the builders to start coming back to building condos and townhomes. If you go to any of the housing websites today and you look for anything under 300,000 in any of LD 35, which you might find in Shelton, you're not going to find in Thurston County or Kitsap County, anything like that. And if you look at condos and townhomes, you're not going to find anything that's less than 20 years old. They're just not building them, right? So I think you ask what's an issue not being looked at. I think that's a huge issue because it's kind of a root cause to a lot of other problems. People aren't saving money because they don't have something to save it into. They're spending their money on rent rather than on a mortgage.
Thank you. Quick questions. I know our listeners, our viewers, they're like, I want to know a little bit more about Jim. So we'll do some quick questions and then we'll talk a little bit about leadership. How you doing so far?
Doing great. Thanks.
Awesome. Quick question. You don't have to think too long on it. Just one word.
Okay.
Favorite local restaurant?
Oh, my favorite was they actually shut down. It was Don Garcia's in south of Olympia. but I think they went out of business. Second favorite would be one of the Thai restaurants. I go to several of them.
Okay. Favorite place in your district that you go to?
My favorite place in my district?
Mhm.
Capitol State Forest.
Coffee or tea?
Tea. I'm a tea drinker for sure.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
A little bit of both, but I do like getting up early. I love seeing the sun come up.
Favorite book?
I read a lot of books. I have over 3,000 books in my house.
Wow.
So I currently I'm reading Michael Connelly, who is a murder detective mystery, the Bosch series.
Is that your favorite?
Is it my favorite all-time book? Gosh, I don't know. There's so many books to choose from. I don't know that I would have a favorite all-time book. I read a lot.
Favorite Washington destination?
I was just thinking about that yesterday, but there's a small town. Well, Leavenworth is probably my favorite. The little town of Leavenworth up in the hills. But there's another town further north of that. For some reason, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's more of a ski town. It's a real ski town, and I love going cross-country skiing.
Love it. Favorite family tradition?
Thanksgiving and Christmas, of course. I think those are the guaranteed. We get everybody together and see all the babies and everybody from the whole family.
Dogs or cats?
Oh, dogs. Couple here somewhere.
What's one thing people would never guess about you?
One thing people would never guess about me. Let me think about that. What would you never guess about me? I don't know. I'll have to come back to that one.
All right, we can come back to that.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I know for me, one thing that my friends back home in Indiana, my friends and family, they could never guess that I listened to a lot of hippie music, like like the handpan and meditation music. You come into my office sometimes and it just looks like a doggone spa.
Well, probably people, yeah. So I think the thing that people would never guess unless they know me well is I practice Tai Chi every day. And I think that's not a common thing that a lot of people, Americans do. But I've been practicing Tai Chi since my daughter was born. And I practice it every single morning before I go out on a walk or a bike ride before breakfast.
Awesome. Thank you. Tell me, so we're going to talk a little bit about leadership right now.
Yeah.
Tell me about a difficult decision that you've made when there wasn't a clear answer.
Well, I think some of the most difficult decisions I've made in my career were, one of the things I did was I was a quality engineer at Microsoft, and we would be shipping a new product. And, I have many different teams that I work with in parallel. They don't work for me directly. I'm more, this guy on the side that just focuses on quality. Mainly, my area of quality is performance engineer. So how long does page load time? When you go to a website, how long does it take to load was one of the things I did. We have a big project. It's being shipped on such and such date. There's a marketing plan that's going out. There's a bunch of people focused on the shipping date, a lot of money focused on it. And I'm coming along and saying, stop, this is not ready to be shipped, right? It has problems. And you kind of feel like the literal ship, like there's a ship like the Queen Mary or something, and you're just this little tiny guy going, stop, and this thing's kind of rolling down into the water, and you're trying to stop the whole thing. And, digging your feet in and saying no, but questioning yourself at the same time, is this really what I want to do? Is this the hill to die on? To use another metaphor, but that's probably one of the more difficult decisions. And I'd actually have to do that more than one time, many times. Get in front of something that has a whole lot of momentum behind it and say, no, I think this is wrong. And we'll end up paying more in the long run if we ship it now rather than fixing it before it goes out. And that was always difficult.
Thank you. What is an issue that has changed your mind over the years, and what caused you to rethink your position?
An issue that has changed my mind. There's one issue that I kind of feel I'm maybe swimming upstream against some of the rest of the folks about, in my party anyways, and that's property taxes. I've talked to a lot of people who really feel like property taxes, especially older people, the property taxes in Washington are driving them out of their home. The tax on a house can be higher than somebody's Social Security if they're on Social Security, just the taxes, property taxes alone. Now, what I found out recently is that we do have some senior exemption programs. And just in this last year, the senior exemptions were tripled. They tripled the number of people that will be exempted. Anybody that's over, in Thurston County anyways, $93,000 for a couple, and they're over 61 years old, can get a property tax exemption. So the reason I think that changed my mind is, not that I was ever for property tax increases, but the party in general, we have a budget for each of the different counties, and we're very dependent on property taxes. And yet, every time we increase the property tax, somebody has to pay that. And if we're literally forcing seniors out of their home because they can't pay they have to sell their house because they can't afford the taxes on it, I think that's wrong. And we need to handle that at both ends, right? The one end is making more of the exemptions for seniors, and the other end is just being really, really tight with where we spend our money, right?
Public service often requires balance and competing priorities. Can you share a time in your life when your actions demonstrated the values that you hope to bring into this office?
So I'm doing some sort of balancing act between doing one thing and doing another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think about that for a moment. Well, there's always trade-offs in what you can do, as far as like I can buy the new car, or I could, pay for my roof. Those are easy decisions, right? You pay for the roof first before you buy the new car. If you have a leaky roof. Hard decisions are more, I don't know. Maybe I have to come back to that one too.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Which is there a group of people that you feel like are overlooked or underserved in your district?
We definitely have immigrants who are, there may be too much attention on them, from the wrong kind of attention. I think our whole immigration thing is really broken. I hear conservative people saying, well, they should do it the right way. And then I ask them, well, what's the right way? Well, they want to become a citizen. We allow, as the country, we allow 800,000 people to become citizens each year, which the number sounds like a lot until you think 350 million of us So that's 0.3%, or in a 10-year period, 3%. So what I'm saying is, in a 10-year period, if you look at all the people around us and you say, how many immigrants should there be that are allowed to become citizens? 3% sounds like a really small number, right? I would think that we could triple that or quadruple that, and it still would be a relatively small number of people. We want them to do it the right way, but there is no real right way. It's too small of a pathway for people to become citizens. And I stood there with my mom while I was up in the balcony when she raised her hand and she became a citizen, and I saw that she had to learn the language. She had to learn everything about civics, and she probably understands, how Congress and Senate works as well as anybody. All people who are raising their hand to become a citizen have to do that, and we should be assimilating, to use that phrase, but we should be allowing people to become Americans the right way. But there should be a right way, and I think immigrants in general are not given the proper attention that they should have.
Oh, thank you. How will you make sure that people without money or influence in your district have the same opportunities to be heard as the people with money and influence?
Well, for one, I'm not taking money from corporations. So if you go to the pdc.com, anyone goes there, it's public.
I went there last night. It was very interesting things in there.
Yeah. My opponent takes money from Chevron, from the data centers, from insurance agencies, from transportation, all large corporations. In fact, very few individual citizens. Mine is the opposite. I have no corporations and no foreign money either, right? Foreign influence money. All my contributions have been from individual citizens. So not only would I allow, have office hours and have people coming to talk to me, but I also like going out and doing town halls where I'm meeting with people. I have people on my team who are setting up these coffee klatches, and we're going, and it's not just a one-way conversation. I'm listening to people, and I consider myself, that's one of my superpowers, if you will, that I listen and I take notes and I go and I research those things. Somebody tells me, oh, this and this happened. I go and I look that up and I find out, okay, now how many people has that happened to? How big of a problem is that? And what do we need to do about it? So I'm actively reaching out to people and listening to their story.
What's an issue where you're willing to compromise for, and what's an issue where you simply there's no compromise?
Start with the one I wouldn't compromise. I would not backpedal anyway on women's rights or any sort of the equal rights that we have. With women's rights, the right to choose abortion or not, that's a woman's choice. The ability for women to be able to vote, I think that's under attack now with this voter rights. People change their names and they don't necessarily have the documentation that shows their birth certificate with the same name. So I think that's an attack on women. Those are type of things I would never, backpedal on. The same thing, for the other minorities in general, LGBTQ also, I don't see us backpedaling on any of those rights and opportunities that we have in Washington State. Things that I can negotiate on, well, that's probably quite a few things. I think quite often the devil's in the details. So you can totally agree on something, but working it out in the details is where some detail could totally flip the whole situation. Data centers is probably something there where I think a lot of people are against data centers, and I am in general in agreement, because for a couple reasons. We don't have, the data centers are being built along the river, the Columbia River, where there is hydropower and we pay 4 cents a kilowatt hour. Having data centers come out here in Mason County or Thurston County, where it's 16 cents a kilowatt, it's just not reasonable. And having the data centers then build gas turbines to power them, I don't think that's reasonable either. And yesterday I sat waiting at the intersection for the train to go by, and I counted every single car was a coal car, right? Coal was headed north somewhere. I don't know where. I guess I'm going back into the non-negotiables there, because I'm against coal in every single way. But can we have some things like data centers? Probably yes, but in the appropriate place. And I don't think that we should make the ratepayers pay for those things. We don't have the power over here in the western part of the state. If we have to put up transmission lines, the individual ratepayer shouldn't be paying for that. It should be the data centers that they want to have that. So I'm not totally against them, but I'm not naive about what they're bringing, And if we set them down in the water to cool them off, they're taking a huge amount of water. But if we were to put them in one of the bays, I don't think that's a good idea either, because that's going to heat the water up and damage our oysters and damage our fish. So there's a lot of negatives that come with data centers. So I'll listen to the arguments, but there's too many negatives right now.
Thank you. If you're in office, and if budget constraints force you to choose between two priorities that you deeply care about, how would you make that decision?
Well, I can tell you that having looked at the 3 county budgets, Thurston, Mason, and Kitsap, all of them are running over budget. Last I looked in earlier this year, the biggest trade-offs and where they have taken money out, the number one line item as a whole is the sheriffs. And so the Sheriff Sanders in Thurston County did take quite a bit of a cut this last year. And I think that's very painful, because we already have one of the lowest counts of officers to population. But he took that. There was a haircut across the budget, as far as I could tell, right? So how do I figure that out? If I was doing that, I definitely, I wouldn't make a decision all by myself, right? I would go out and I would talk to people. What is it going to cost you if you take, budget leader so-and-so? What is it going to cost you if you take this hit? I would also go to the constituents, people who are going to be downstream of that. What is it going to cost us if we take this hit? And I would also look at things. Here's the honest answer, I think, is how did we get into a situation where we don't have the budget, right? And what is it that we committed to that we can no longer afford? So one of the things I discovered was that with COVID, the government was starting to hand out all these dollars, right? And individual counties and cities took those dollars, and instead of, in many cases, they did not spend that money wisely. They did not spend it on one and done kind of investments. What they did is they bought something. I think of it as buying a truck on overtime. it's great as long as I keep getting overtime. But the moment I don't get overtime anymore, I'm still paying for the truck, right? If I only made the down payment on it. So I think what happened with COVID was a number of counties started making investments. They made down payments on things. They committed to buying things or paying for things. It could be they created a new organization, or they hired, X number of new people using those dollars. Well, COVID dollars disappeared last year, right? Government's not sending those checks anymore. If we hired new people or we committed to new projects that were using COVID dollars, we don't have the COVID dollars anymore. So those would be the areas that I would look at first, because those are the last thing that we committed to. Now, there may be still like, oh, those were emergencies that we had to solve. But I would definitely go look at those type of things that we maybe poorly committed to.
Thank you. Jim, imagine, do you got a good imagination?
Sometimes.
Yeah. So just imagine with me, you and I, we're sitting here today, exactly 1 year, and we're having a conversation. What would you hope that you've accomplished that voters can literally point and say, you know what? Jim kept his word.
Well, a year from today, July or late June, I would hope that I would already have written, sponsored, and co-sponsored a number of bills that would have made a real impact. There's a couple that I can think of right away. I definitely want to position myself somewhere to look at healthcare. I think healthcare, there's a certain amount of overhead, administrative overhead. It's argued to be as much as 30%. I want to implement something in that space that makes that more transparent so that we know exactly where those dollars are, and then also do something to eliminate those wasted administrative dollars. I would like to see something in the energy space. Solar is kind of one of my pet projects. I'd like to see solar be encouraged in a bigger way. Although I know we're in Washington State and it's, the sun's not always out. So, but I think we can do more around solar. Housing, probably the biggest thing that I want to focus on is housing. Like I mentioned, we need a $300,000 home. And one way to do that is to get the builders to building townhomes and condos. And I want to do some sort of incentives. I don't want new regulations. I want new incentives that encourage builders and encourage insurance agencies to insure those builders to build condos and to build townhomes and anything else, single family homes, but in the $300,000 range, not the $600,000, not the luxury houses that none of our 30, 40-year-olds can afford.
At the end of your first term, how will you measure whether you've been successful or not?
At the end of the first term, the fact that I have sponsored bills and those bills have been signed by the governor, I think is one big measurement. But that's more at the government level. I would like to see actual fruit of the labor, meaning that a number of builders, we're talking about a 2-year period, right? But within that time, a number of builders have actually started and are building $300,000 homes, right? And that has upticked, that there's an actual increase in the number of those homes across the Thurston County, Mason, and Kitsap, that those are being built. I'd also like to see, like I mentioned, that healthcare is a whole lot closer to some sort of universal healthcare solution.
Is briefly, I'm curious, is there one promise that you've heard other candidates make that simply is not realistic because of how the government actually works?
Well, I think my opponent is making not a promise, but he's making a statement that home prices are too high and it's all about regulation and we should deregulate. And I don't think that's realistic. The regulations that we have, not all of them, some are redundant for sure, but if you're cutting OSHA, that's safety. Just deregulating and for deregulation to make things cheaper, I don't think is actually realistic. And I think that's a promise, not a promise, but it's certainly a statement that I'm hearing that I don't think is really feasible. Nor will the majority party allow him to actually do that.
Is there an issue where in the past where you've taken that you knew would be unpopular because you believed it was the right thing to do?
Well, I haven't been in office before.
Just in general.
Yeah, but I think the property tax is probably one that a lot of people feel that, no, we should just increase the property tax. And I think when I'm filling out endorsement questionnaires, that's, will you agree to increase the property tax from 1%, increase per year? And I'm always like, no, or at least with reservations and guidelines, so generally, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to raise taxes, property taxes. And I think that is something that the individual taxpayer is totally on my side, but a lot of folks that are running for office or in office are, they're just trying to find money to pay for the budget. And I respect that, but I don't think that's where we start.
Thank you. Can you tell me about a time in your life where you fought for someone who couldn't fight for themselves? I think it's more of a question about your advocacy.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm around a lot of kids, and of course they can't really stand up for themselves. And I'd have to think of an exact situation where that happened, but whether it's my own kids, my grandkids, or kids in the neighborhood, because I would bring, we lived in a cul-de-sac for a number of years, and I would have all the kids over in the neighborhood, and there's a lot of kids in our neighborhood, like 12, and we would play street hockey, and I would be the referee, right? And sometimes, this kid did that to this kid, and I'd have to break it up and get in the middle of that and really try to make it fun for everybody. But occasionally, the accidents, most of the time it was just accidents, it wasn't intentional. But being that kind of parent who would enable the game, right, where kids could play, but not tolerate any sort of fighting that would happen. I mean, put it in the game. Don't fight with each other. Use your energy to make the goal. Things like that. So
sounds like that's the kind of energy that you're going to be bringing to your seat.
Yeah. Sometimes herding cats or bringing the kids together to do their thing without beating each other up. I definitely believe that we should be civil to each other. And like I said, when I'm door knocking, 99.9% of the people are friendly. I have done a few thousand, so I can say 99.9 now. But I think people want to be friendly. It's social media that allows people to kind of have an anonymous face and But once people are actually up talking to somebody, they don't have those kind of illusions that they can just get away with anything they want to say.
Thank you. Campaigns often involve a lot of promises. I'd like to ask you to make just one commitment to the voters that are watching, that are listening today, that like if you're elected, what would be one issue, one policy, one initiative that you'll fight the hardest for day one? And why is that your priority?
Well, I already signed well, I don't know what you call it, but a promise that says I will be patient first. So the folks that are having trouble with their health care, and they're finding that the corporations, the insurance agencies are, whether they're jacking up the price or they're hiding their costs, hiding their profit in administrative costs. I will always be patient first. I'm looking at the patient's point of view first. And that's a promise that I absolutely can make.
How will voters know if you're making progress or not?
They'll see the wins. They'll see things actually getting passed. They'll hear that we've passed the bill. They'll also hear that they're being adopted. One thing that I really kind of also like, we didn't mention it before, I would like to see, kind of a side note, there's a thing called the Client Commitment Act. So when you look at your gas taxes, right, there's 45 cents on a gallon that actually is part of the Climate Commitment Act. And I don't think that's going to go away. And the Republicans have tried to take it away or to somehow give that money back to people. But I look at what it's for. It's because we want to move people away from creating smog, away from fossil fuels. We want to move towards hybrids and electrics and such, and green energy. And that money is supposed to be used for those things. But what I'm looking at when I look at how the CCA money is actually utilized, I'm not seeing it go to all of those type of things that I would want it to go to. In fact, a very small percentage is going to things like putting insulation into your house, putting double pane or more efficient windows in, getting the most efficient water heater. Those right now are limited to a very small percentage. And they're only going to the low income people, which is good for them, but I want to see that expanded. I want everybody to be able to benefit from that, so that everyone should be encouraged to put more insulation into their attic, make their house a better insulated house. And I want people to feel that, to know that when they buy their next water heater, there's a rebate on that, and they're getting the rebate from Washington State, right? And so they're going to go, oh, I'm feeling that. I got that rebate, or I went and I got the new windows, or I got the new insulation, or I bought a new stove. Those type of rebates, those should be things that people actually see on a regular basis.
Thank you. Every elected official has to one day cast a vote that disappoints someone. When that day comes, how would you want people to know that you arrived to that decision?
Well, I want to tell people about it. I would not want them to find out about it, after the fact. Oh, Jim did this and didn't tell anybody. I would telegraph that, in the sense that, hey, I would let my audience know. I would, whether on Facebook or in newspapers, whatever, I would be saying, look, folks, I'm looking at this really tough question here, and I don't see how we can go this way versus that. And I'm leaning towards this way that I know that is going to upset a few people. And I'm going to say that ahead of time. And I think one thing that does is it gives more people the ability to give me feedback before I do it, right? Because I definitely want to hear all sides of the equation before making that kind of commitment. But once I've done it, I wouldn't hide from it. I'd let people know that it happened, and why I did it, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm representing the people in my district, right? If I'm making, and first of all, if I'm making a decision that is just me making it, and I don't have representatives or constituents who I'm representing for that, then I'm that's not a very good decision. I'm not going to overwrite, what I'm being told by all my constituents, unless maybe I think that I'm just not hearing. I'm not one of those guys that think, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. I'll make the good vote. No, I'm listening to people, like I said earlier, and I'm not listening to the banks and to the airlines and to the Chevrons and to the insurance agencies. I'm listening to the individual people that are voting for me.
So you mean you're not taking corporate dollars to work for them? It sounds like your plan is to work for the people.
I work for the people. I'm not taking any corporate dollars whatsoever.
All right, Jim. Yeah. I'm curious. Is there any question where you're like, you know what? I hope that Tony asks me this question, and if so, what is it, and how would you answer it?
I don't know. Maybe, of course, I always, like anyone else, like talking about myself and what kind of things that I'm into. I'm very much into outdoors. My son-in-law calls me an outdoorsman. I had to think about that. Because when I think of an outdoorsman, I think of the guy, up on a horse riding someplace. And I don't have any horses, but I do have several bikes in my garage, mountain bikes. I'm very much into pedal assist and going up I mentioned Capitol State Forest before. There's so many trails up there. I have trails just next to my house, and I'm constantly out there. If I'm not riding, I'm walking, and I have my clippers in my back because blackberries grow about a foot a day. And so I'm trimming the trails.
That's awesome. So when you're out on the trails, you're trimming them.
I'm trimming them because, blackberry will be here on the side of the trail one day and completely across the trail on the next day. And I ride every single day. So I have to be ready to cut the blackberries back as I go.
All right. Before we wrap up, because we're at the top of the hour, I like to ask you one final favor. I know I've asked a lot of you, and I appreciate you. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me, to speak with the constituents, the people that are going to be voting for you. I know it means a lot to people. I mean, because you could be one of these candidates that say, you know what, I'm not going to do any interviews. I'm not going to go to any forums. I'm not going to do any debates. I'm definitely not going to do any podcasts. But you chose the latter. So I want to thank you for that and ask you for a favor. If you wouldn't mind, and I'll pop you up just on the screen, I'd like for you to look directly in the camera and speak to the voters. If this were the last time that they were going to hear from you before they go and they cast their ballot, I mean, they're sitting in their cars and they got their phone and they looking and on the record, and they want to see what Jim's talking about. What would you want them to know? The floor is yours.
Okay. Well, hi, I'm Jim Pierson. I'm running for state representative of LD 35. That's the district that goes from Thurston County, Mason County, and Kitsap County. I'm running for the state representative position, and I think I'm well qualified for it. And I can represent you, the people, not the corporate interests that I think our current incumbents are representing. I spent 7 years in Special Forces in the Army in the Arctic Circle, and then I came back here to Washington State the last 30 years raising a family and working in the software industry as a project manager. And I think having managed hundreds of projects and taught thousands of engineers tricks of the trade that I do, I think I'm qualified to do projects that we have here in Washington State. And, you know, those are the type of things that require a project manager, but definitely somebody who can listen to you, hear your concerns, and be able to bubble those concerns up and do something about them, you know, at the broader level across the state, across the district. And so I hope that you'll vote for me. Check out my website, electjimpierson.com, and reach out to me. You can find my email there and my phone number as well. So I listen to everybody all the time, and I'll probably be knocking on your door sometime in the next month or so.
Whew, that was great. If you enjoyed this podcast, well, I'm sure you enjoyed it. If you're still here with us, what I want you to do is head over to your favorite podcast and streaming network and give us a download, subscribe to the channel, and also let us know what you think about the show. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for the things that you've done. Thank you for the things that you're doing. And especially thank you for the things that you're going to do, because I know that you're going to do something amazing.